Well, here it is. One thing that kind of bugs me ever so often is what's known as how to draw manga books. Okay, this started when I graduated. Up until then, you had art books about how to draw, how to paint, how to do weird paintings of naked women, that sort of thing. But by and large, how-to books on how to draw comics was kind of scarce. I mean, yeah, you had Chris Hart's How to Draw Dynamic Heroes and Villains and the Bible, essentially. What do I refer to? How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. But unless it was Hart who wrote it, or Eisner or Stanley, really didn't see much. When I was in Denver during the turn of the century, I began to see art books and reference books on how to draw manga and whatnot. It wasn't exactly how to draw manga, but books from Japan on drawing and referencing. It was actually the first time I've ever actually saw a reference book, and it's kind of hilarious if you compare those books to the reference books I use now. When I'm using a reference book on how to draw a model, the Western book, it's no clothing and the entire nude. With Japanese ones, it's at least wearing panties, sometimes wearing both bra and panties. Interesting thing, the society that creates fairly graphic and grotesque S&M based, or just regular graphic and grotesque vanilla manga, hentai manga, is rather prudish in that sort of respect. But hey, whatever goes. But by and large, that's what I had. But then I started seeing books on how to draw manga. It was like how to draw manga, getting started in manga and whatnot. I really just put them off as just another fad. I mean, I just stuck to drawing comics. I mean, everything I knew about manga was on how to draw manga, and I actually draw manga a little bit better than most people, is by and large 2 articles in Wizard from the mid to late 90s. One was written by Adam Warren, the beatific artist of the American edition of Gunsmith's Cats. I don't know if it's still being published, but you might want to get collected editions. It was published through Dark Horse, and the other was via Scott McCloud, who actually broke down certain aspects. The mishmashing of cartoony figures with very detailed backgrounds, the use of speed lines and whatnot. On top of that, also was Dreamland Japan. Wonderful book if you ever get a hold of it. Goes through all different styles of manga and all different artists. But by and large, I dismissed the large how to draw manga thing, book series, because didn't really need to learn. And most people who went through the how to draw manga school, to me, it's their anatomy is just horrid. I'm sorry. It's like Walt Simonson or Jim Steranko looking at the Rob Liefeld school of comics. I mean, okay, think about it this way: it's like most purist manga artists either have something wrong with their anatomy, something wrong with their backgrounds, or a combination of both. I mean, I knew one girl who was drawing her magnum opus manga. There was really pretty much 3 problems with it. One, instead of actually using separate boards like most artists would use, she actually drew it in a sketch diary. 2, she didn't use a ruler. Hello? Everyone needs to use a ruler. At least a ruler, possibly a circle template, and a compass. But she did her thing. The one thing that struck me on it was her anatomy. It looked most of her figures looked pretty much like Stretch Armstrong. anybody catches that reference, you'll understand. And there was another guy who was the premier manga artist of my school at the time. He had a little bit better anatomy and a little bit more special. But his problem was he did it like it was almost like Dragon Ball Z, but with very, very stubby arms. Of course, then again, this is a long time ago. Both their styles probably gotten better, but it still persists. Anyways, a few years ago, I decided to actually look at most of those books, and I hated to be considered right again, but basics of anatomy, yeah, they go over the basic anatomy. You probably do a lot better by reading Bridgman's Life Guide to Drawing Life, Bridgman's Guide to Anatomy. One I think is a great starter book is How to Draw the Head and Figure by Jack Ham. Get you started. Probably do some Bern Hogarth and a bunch of other stuff. Then branch out into it. I mean, if you want to go completely into advanced techniques, probably Sakamoto Ryoma or Sakayama or oh god, it's been a while. Oh dear. Anyways, you'll pretty much understand it. Type in airbrush and Penthouse. For the longest time, he was actually the premier illustrator for Penthouse. Very, very beatific airbrush artist. And if you want to stick the comments, go ahead. But a lot of the techniques, they're pretty much tips and techniques that any illustrator or cartoonist already knows. Of course, then again, there were two new ones that I didn't know. One was the concept, one was that effect that they sometimes get of spiraling out the speed lines, and another is that shooting up. Major difference being is manga artists use a pen, use a thumbtack stuck into the middle of the paper with a pen and a straight edge. Traditionally, most comic book artists use actually a brush with a straight edge, and it actually does a slightly. And both techniques are one adds a very crisp starburst pattern. The other actually does this wonderful bold technique that I actually like a little bit better. One you could look at the works of Eric Larson, Jack Kirby, and whatnot. But by and large, one doesn't necessarily need to study books on manga to draw manga. One possibly needs to learn books about sequential art, anatomy, perspective, and whatnot. But by and large, I would never pick up a book on how to draw manga to draw manga. I would go with what I already know. That's it for now. If you want to subscribe, go ahead.